you, got me. One big happy family. And Humble Thinker was here first today. He sits in his home, on his desk, by his desk, just waiting for me to call.
That's what he does all day.
That's what he does all day. Because he wants that free trip with me to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I heard about that.
1,000 Pine Points to you, Humble Thinker. Welcome, everyone. I know we're scheduled to be on at 10:30, but I wanted to keep the viewership lower today because this is going to get really serious. And so we started early. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing well. May the 4th be with you.
Oh, exactly.
Today.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I just before we went on, I have to confess, I really didn't know much about the United Church of Christ. That's the church you're a pastor of, right?
Yeah, I work on the pastoral staff at a United Church of Christ church. So I'm actually fairly new to that denomination. I've been a part of the Presbyterian Church USA for quite a while now, and then switched over my membership and also my church leadership to
Presbyterian?
Yeah, Presbyterian. PCUSA.
Did you have
That's what I've been for quite a long time, yeah.
Did you have to disavow Calvinism to go to the United Church of Christ?
Oh, no, they're not that serious about Calvinism.
Yeah. I keep forgetting, is the Presbyterian USA one, is that the more mainline or the more evangelical?
Yeah, it's the more progressive one.
Okay, more the mainline.
Is Presbyterian Church of America is the more conservative. They don't ordain women, for example, and they take a hard stance against like gay marriage and all of that sort of stuff. So
okay, that's the one I used to go to. That was
okay.
That was my last stop.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good on you for getting out of there.
Interesting. And so, tell me a little bit there's so many different denominations of Christianity. What is the flavor of United Church of Christ that you're currently in?
Flavor. I would say, so it's still technically within the Reformed tradition, and it's congregationalist, which means that decision-making is made by the congregation more broadly and not like a set of leadership, right? So it's very democratic. We put things to votes. And what happens in one congregation does not necessarily affect another congregation. So it's actually kind of similar to like what Baptists do, where there's an autonomous body of people that makes decisions for their particular church, right? There is kind of a larger governing body, but power doesn't really work from the top down. It's more kind of the symbolic.
But it's more liberal leaning than conservative leaning, is my guess?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, for the most part. And especially in my state, in North Carolina, it definitely leans progressive. And so the church that I'm a part of is an open and affirming church, which means we embrace people of all gender identities, sexual orientation, ability, all of that. We're very clear about that up front, that's part of actually who we are as the church is welcoming everybody. So.
Okay, so for most evangelical conservative type churches, denominations, they view you just as probably as atheistic
they probably
as
just
me.
Or just a liberal. Right?
Yeah.
I'm just the liberal other, right? That the big bad enemy. Yeah. I'm sure I would get lumped into that for sure.
Okay. And you've been a Christian for how long, or called yourself a Christian for how long?
I would say since college. So it was quite late. My family went to church. I wasn't that involved growing up. So it wasn't really until I started studying theology in college that I became more interested in the church and learning more about that. And
so it wasn't a vision or a dream or getting too drunk or ODing on drugs or anything like that?
No, it was definitely more of a process than a sort of event. I wasn't smacked off my horse per se. But I would definitely, as Laura has brought up, I would definitely talk about sort of the way in which we're involved with God in terms of revelation, But the way that works out for people is going to be different. It's not always going to be just this big moment where you suddenly realize, oh, I'm a Christian now. I can't really identify that for myself. So
Interesting. So you were basically studying theology, and that led you to being a Christian.
Yeah, it made me interested in the subject, and then through that, I began sort of sensing, oh, this is stuff that I'm starting to take this on board in terms of this seems true. It seems true about reality. It seems to make sense of the things that I'm seeing around me.
What were your parents?
My mom grew up Catholic, so my mom is Mexican, so she grew up in a big family, big Catholic family, and then
I have
married
50
my dad.
first cousins. Can you beat that?
No,
Okay.
I can't beat that. It's definitely bigger than my family. But so she grew up Catholic and then kind of converted to like quasi evangelicalism in high school and like hey, oh, thank you. Coffee refill. Sorry.
I'm assuming that's Laura.
Yes, that is Laura. Thank you.
So your mother went from Roman Catholic to evangelical?
Basically, yeah. It was kind of a weird like Pentecostal kind of evangelical hybrid. Like speaking in tongues was a big thing. The sort of idea of revival was a big thing. And my dad also grew up within the sort of Pentecostal tradition, but he really quickly kind of rejected that stuff. And today,
because he didn't like raising his hands, right?
Right. He didn't quite buy the whole speaking in tongues thing either. But and I don't know if what he considers himself to be. He's a trained historian and he's a philosopher, and so he's kind of all over the place.
Okay, so it's not like you were totally devoid of the Christian background when you started studying theology.
No, no.
Like for, I think, many people who come from a background where religiosity is pretty close to zero, if you start studying theology, wouldn't you say, this stuff is nuts? Like,
yeah, that was actually part of what was attractive about it to me initially, was how bizarre this stuff was. How bizarre this idea of a God incarnate dying on the cross and being raised. That's pretty friggin' weird, right?
Yeah, very weird. But you bought into it, right?
Yeah, I like weird stuff.
I would love to know how you went from this is weird, bizarre stuff to actually believing it's true. But we don't have to do that now. You can ask me questions if you want first.
Yeah, it's really, really hard for me to sort of narrate precisely how I thought my way through that. And that's why I like talking about this in terms of revelation too, like Laura has, although I would probably talk about it in a slightly different way. That it's not something that I can't really narrate how I thought my way through to being a Christian. I don't really know. As I started studying these things, it became evident that, I think this stuff is true. And then I started being involved in the church. I started having mentors who were in the church and who kind of drew me in that way. So it was actually, a lot of this was through mentoring relationships that I formed with my advisor at my college, through the different networks of relationship that I met through him in the church. And so it was more through those relationships, I think, that I became, I got to a place where I would call myself a Christian and believe that that's true.
Sounds like you adopted the beliefs of the community around you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what the church is, right? It's a community of people who believe
that
we're with, right? So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we adopt community beliefs in a lot of different ways.
Well, it's not bad, depending on what the beliefs are, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they're true, and
yeah, and I think that's how conversion tends to work. We have a lot of sociological material on this, where conversion tends to happen through networks of relationship. This is sort of Rodney Stark's thing, right? It tends to be through like household relationships, although that wasn't really part of my own journey into Christianity, if you want to call it that. But it was definitely through networks of relationship that happened. It was through the people around.
I've often said that Christianity, people go into religion for one or two reasons mostly, and that is indoctrination and desperation. And it sounds like you were sort of indoctrinated in maybe the basics that God exists, and Christianity is more likely true than not out of all the religions. But you didn't really have that time in your life where you really felt a need for Jesus or a need for Christianity to be true, or did you? No,
not at all.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't filling some sort of like empty space, right, that I sort of sensed in myself, where it wasn't like releasing me from some kind of perceived guilt that I have, that which people tend to narrate it that way, right? They feel awful about their sin, and then only Jesus can sort of make that right. I didn't really have that. That wasn't a
Well, when I was talking to your wife Laura, I really hit her hard with this personal revelation type deal, in her testimony, whatever you want to call it. And I said to Laura that you should doubt that is a good way to come to knowledge that this is true. Like, it's a terrible, horrible way to come to this idea that this is true. And then I did the outsider test for faith with her, like all the different religions in the world, and some core beliefs are contradictory. They can't both be true. So would you agree with Laura that this is how you came to believe that this is true as well? Or do you rely on the scriptures or traditions more than she does?
No, I would say that for Christian truth, we should be talking about it in terms of revelation. I don't know if I would talk about it in terms of, at least all the time, like a personal experience, right? Because I don't think that always happens to people, where you can sort of name, oh, this is when God encountered me and I encountered God, right? But I still would talk about the dynamic of Christian truth in terms of revelation, even if there's no sort of specific
general revelation versus specific.
Right. Well, not so much general revelation, because I still think that it's the person of Jesus that reveals the truth through the Spirit. It's not just you can't just sort of look at the world and find, oh, there's God revealed there. I still think it's the person of Jesus that reveals that. It may just look different practically for people. It could be a journey. It could be more of a process of being in relationships with other people, which is sort of what happened to me. Or some people talk about it in terms of a big dramatic experience, something like what Paul seems to have gone through. So I wouldn't just talk about it in terms of a specific dramatic experience, but that is involved for some people.
So why do you believe this is true?
I believe it's true because I think...
and this meaning... I guess we should be more specific.
Yeah, we should probably specify about that.
Yeah.
Do you mean, so
the core usually
about
is the bodily resurrection of Jesus. Is that the core for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the resurrection of Jesus, the incarnation, the lordship of Christ. All of that sort of stuff is sort of part of the core of Christianity, right? So it's not just the resurrection.
Okay, so that stuff, why do you believe that stuff is true?
I believe it's true, and I'm going to appeal to Revelation because it's something that's been revealed in the person of Jesus Christ to me. It wasn't a big dramatic experience, but it was, I think, the dynamic is revelation, and I would say that it's self-authenticating, right? There's no sort of judge outside of that because it's God who's revealing it to you.
Oh, I'm hearing the Presbyterian come out on you here now.
What do you mean?
So, well, that's the phrase they often use. It's more, yeah, that's a fairly common phrase in Presbyterian circles, which, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I'm hearing you say that it's, I gotta be careful how I say this, that the world does not make sense if it's not true. that it almost has to be true. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
I'm not sure what is it.
Christianity, the core propositions, what we
Yeah,
talked about.
I mean, I'm not wanting to reduce this to those core propositions. What I'm saying is the truth for me is Jesus Christ. It's the reality of God. The resurrection and the incarnation and all of that sort of stuff is a part of that. But I would really just want to talk about the reality of God as the truth, or Jesus himself as the truth. That's where I'm coming from.
But what did you mean when you said self-authenticating? That's what I'm trying to get at here.
That there's no other sort of measure of whether or not it's true. You can't sort of impose another measure onto God. That would be a weird thing to do. The Lord of everything being authenticated by something else, that would necessarily mean that that thing is in some ways in a superior position to God himself, if you can measure it by something else, right? So it needs to be that. If it's actually God here, I don't know how there would be some other criteria to judge whether or not that's true, whether or not God is involved with this.
You can't judge whether it's true or not?
Not by any sort of external criteria, no. I think that's a huge mistake.
And if someone else of a worldview that you think is wrong says the same thing, what do we do then?
Well, you're assuming that there's some assumptions there that I think everyone else is just simply wrong about everything, right?
Let's Jesus is not God incarnate. He did not rise from the dead, says the Muslim.
Yeah, right. I would say,
and then you ask him, why do you believe that? And he says, well, it's self-authenticating.
Right.
You can't judge Allah by any other measure.
Right. Yep. Sure.
So what do you say to this Muslim?
I would say from where I'm coming from within the position of the community, I would say that they're wrong about that. I have no problem with saying that they're wrong about the resurrection. I don't see a problem with that.
Okay. So, now, me sitting as an outsider, if I hear the Muslims say that it's self-authenticating, you can't judge Allah because he's the standard of all truth, and I hear you saying something similar, how in the world do I figure out which one of you guys is right? You're saying Jesus rose from the...
Yeah, that's the question. That's a key question. And I think what you're hitting on with that, and I think the self-authenticating thing doesn't just go for religious stuff. I think there is a sense in which when we get to the core and sort of basic truth claims from all systems of truth, you're either going to have to say something is self-authenticating, or you're going to have to end up dealing with the problem of infinite regress at the basis of your thinking. So I think everyone is really doing this to a certain extent. Right. Everyone at the end of the day is going to confess something as properly basic, right? That's another way we could potentially talk about this. But I think that has to be either self-authenticating, or it has to be, you have to deal with the tricky problem of infinite regress. There has to consistently be something that judges what you've set up as basically true, and then away we go, right?
Yeah, I'm hearing presuppositional apologetics here, and
how do you mean?
I agree with you that we all need starting points. But when I ask people why they're a Christian, and they say, well, this is just my starting point, it's self-authenticating, and different worldviews say something similar, we're basically left with there's no way to figure out which is true or not. I mean,
there's really no way to talk somebody into the truth of this thing that I'm referring to in terms of the truth about God. I can't talk you into believing this. And I don't think that's my job.
Right. I understand. And the thing
I would say that in order to understand that what I'm confessing is true, I think, and I'm sure you've been a part of like churches and Christian communities and all of that sort of stuff, but I think it really has to do with, this is kind of up to God in a certain sense. I can't make this happen. I can't make somebody become a Christian.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm not even talking about evangelism right now. But
yeah,
did you see the thought experiment I did with Laura with the envelope? I don't have an envelope here, but maybe I do. Oh yeah, in this envelope, I have the truth, whether Jesus Christ rose from the dead, body was God in flesh, all the main important stuff. And I open it up, and it says, no, Jesus is not God in flesh, did not rise from the dead body. This is the metaphysical truth right here in this envelope. And John, you are wrong in this thought experiment. The truth is, you are wrong. But you don't know it yet until I revealed it to you as being the creator of this YouTube channel.
your mini universe. Yeah.
How would you even begin to figure out that you're wrong when you say that the reason why you believe these things is because this is just your starting point? But your starting point's wrong. How would you ever? Is there any way to get
To falsify it, you mean?
Yeah, or just to get to the truth of it?
What do you mean get to the truth? I think I've
Like you're in this thought experiment, you are wrong, dead wrong about Jesus. How would you figure that out?
how would I figure out if I'm wrong about my presuppositions about
Yes.
God, the reality of God incarnate and raised? So that's the tricky thing, is like,
Or does it matter if you're wrong?
does it matter if I'm wrong? I think it would definitely matter if I'm wrong.
Okay, good, good.
For sure, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, Jews and Muslims would definitely say it matters.
yeah, I would agree with them for sure. I don't really know. It's hard to know what would falsify or show me that I'm wrong when I didn't arrive at this through some process of discovery where I'm sort of working my way to find data that seems to lead me to the truth.
Well, we could do some obvious things. Let me propose some obvious solutions. And the first one will be very bizarre, but if we did have time travel, we could go back and see if Jesus actually rose from the dead in bodily form, said the things he said, did the things he did. If we did that, and you basically saw with your own eyes, Jesus did not rise from the dead. If you could follow Jesus every second of his life, he didn't do the things the New Testament said he did as far as the miracles and so forth. Would you then say, oh, I was wrong?
Sure. I mean, I guess hypothetically, I don't. Your hypotheticals are always very interesting because I don't know why this matters.
Well,
This time travel, like,
well,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
That's a blatant example of how to
I
falsify.
know, but I'm not sure how helpful this is to get at what you're trying to.
Well, let me
to get
take.
me.
Well, if I
Yeah.
can get you to agree that, oh yeah, if I went back in time and saw with my own eyes that Jesus did not rise from the dead in bodily form, I would change my mind. Am I hearing you would agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, hypotheticals are really hard, and hypotheticals about time travel to the past. I don't know what I would do. I'll just say that. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I'm not there.
Yeah, well, that's tough. If you were there walking with in the days of Jesus and you heard and saw with your own eyes that he did not say or do these things or rise from the dead body, if your answer is I don't know if I would, to me it's a no-brainer. I would say, oh, I currently believe Jesus rose from the dead in bodily form and did X, Y, and Z and was God in flesh. But if I were there and saw this with my own eyes and those things didn't happen, if your answer is I don't know where we go from here, because I think you would just say, oh, no, I was wrong. Like, isn't that simple?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, I'm not sure. I don't really. I'm concerned about like now. Like I'm concerned with the resurrection.
Okay, let's talk about now then.
Yeah, because like the hypothetical about going to the past and dealing. I mean, that brings up.
Well, the reason why I went
Yeah.
there is because of where I'm going next. Now let's talk about now. What would you have to see now? What would you have to learn about now to doubt enough that those things actually happened?
Mm-hmm.
That Jesus rose from the dead body, said the things he said, did the things he did.
Mm-hmm.
Can you conceive of anything that would cause you to doubt at a high enough level that you would say, you know what? I'm probably wrong here.
Are you talking specifically about the resurrection of Jesus?
Yeah, we can start with that, but we could even just say, other things Jesus said and did.
I mean, historically speaking, I'm not that concerned with a lot of that. Like, I'm basically on the same page with Laura on the historical stuff. So, just to be clear, you can't prove historically that Jesus was raised. Using the historical method, you can't do that. You can't prove the incarnation. You can't prove a lot of things about God.
Then we're back to what I was talking with Laura about.
Mm-hmm.
We're back to something internal then, because if you
Something
can't...
internal in that sense. What do you mean?
I mean, some inner testimony of the Holy Spirit or some direct revelation, because...
Yeah. In some sense, it's internal, but when we're making the claims about God revealing God's self to people, it's also an objective claim. It's a claim about God acting and living,
right.
The living God acting upon us and arriving. So it's not simply an internal sort of experience.
What's the external part then?
God.
Okay, but what's the evidence for that?
To show up, right?
But what's the external evidence for that?
I don't have to provide external evidence for that. I've already said that it's self-authenticating.
Okay,
because it's
yeah. What do you think my self-authenticating starting point is? Can you guess?
I don't know. This is actually something that I was wanting to talk to you about. So great segue. I would be, I'm curious to know. There are a couple different things. First, what do you think truth is?
I would say truth is what corresponds to reality. And to me, I don't think on a lot of things you have to be omniscient to know what truth is with a capital T. Because I have a couple degrees in the hard sciences. And so...
Oh, nice.
So I think it behooves human beings to have a little bit of humility and realize what they think is true may not be true. And so we got to tie in this idea of truth with how we get there. The epistemology, in my opinion, is more important than the ontology. And because if the ontology is X, but you have no way of figuring out what X is, then who cares? And I would say truth is what corresponds to reality, but it's really important to try to have reliable methods to get there.
Okay. So related to that, then, that's helpful. Related to that, do you have, what are your sort of basic presuppositions, I guess, that you were kind of starting from? What are they first?
Okay.
And we can talk about.
My presuppositions are simple, and I actually think you share the same ones as a Muslim would, a Jew would, and so Hindu would. It's that the universe exists. I presuppose the universe exists, has the properties that it has, that we don't live in the matrix, but I don't care even if we do, but because we still have to operate within that, and that we can learn things about the universe, that through the process of hundreds of millions of years, Homo sapiens evolved to learn, be pattern seekers and learn about the universe around us. And so that's my starting point. It's very, very simple, and I think it's the most properly basic starting point among all biases, all cultures that you can begin with. I think once you start layering in, well, Jesus is God incarnate, or Allah is the basis for truth, or Yahweh is the basis for truth, or Vishnu is the basis for truth, or polytheism, to me that's like way above my properly basic beliefs. It's like you're just layering on all these ideas that are not properly basic at all. So when I hear you say that your starting point is Christianity, that's self-authenticating, I'm thinking, no way. That's not even close to the base, the foundation. And you're lagging.
Yeah. I'm seeing you lag, by the way.
You know what?
Am I lagging? Can you hear me?
On the bottom right of your little window, you might have a little refresh button. Press that, and that might help.
Right. I don't see one.
If you don't see it there, then just go to your Windows Chrome on the top left and hit the...
You can just refresh the page.
Yeah, just refresh the page. That might help.
Okay.
There. Yeah,
Better?
you might have to do that every 15 minutes or so.
That's fine. Just remind me if I'm if I'm frozen and don't know it. So,
So
okay.
did that make sense what I said? Where
Yeah,
my
I would say about the stuff to do with God. I understand from where you're coming from that it seems like that's just stacking stuff on top of what's really properly basic. But I think the claims about God are just a different sort of metaphysical claim. It's like it's an additional thing. When we're talking about God, we're talking about something very different than when we're talking about the world or when we're talking about any other sort of basic presupposition, right? So when Christians are making claims about God, it's just a very different metaphysical claim, and basic claim than anything else. It's not like it's I don't know.
well, you share the same starting point as I do. You just
In terms of
also
what?
that you believe the universe exists. I'm assuming
Yeah, I don't. I still don't.
you believe that you can
This is
learn
where
things
I
about
want
the
to
universe.
focus on. So how do you know
How do I know what?
that the universe exists? How
That's
do you
my
know that?
starting point. That's my starting point. That's my core
So
self-authenticating
yeah. So this is where
presupposition.
your self-authenticating starting point. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So we're basically doing the same thing. It's
Yes,
just I think
everybody has a starting point. I just think my starting point is better than yours.
Well, so you're gonna have to demonstrate why. If you're gonna claim superiority, you're gonna have to tell why.
Way better than yours. And here's why. Here's why. Because I think your worldview has a ton of defeaters. To use philosophical language, the reason why I think there's patterns in culture and religious belief is because these are kind of man-made constructs later that evolved over time. Now, I'm talking about specific theism here. One could argue that the idea of something higher than yourself is among all cultures, granted. But I think my starting point is way superior to yours because it crosses over all cultures, all biases. There's very few people on this planet who would not share the same starting point as me.
Mm-hmm.
But most people add on to my starting point. I'm just joking around. And they get various like self-authenticating starting points that are obviously both can't be true. You and the Jew and the Muslim and the Hindu on some things, there's no possible way that you are all correct on certain key things.
Yeah, that's fine.
But get this.
Yeah.
The Jew, the Muslim, the Christian, the Hindu, they would say, yeah, Doug, I agree with you. The universe exists. Now, some might say, we're a simulation in the mind of God, but still, most would say, yeah, the universe exists. Yeah, we can learn things about it. They would go on to say, but that's only because of the preconditions of intelligibility that has been given and revealed by our Creator. And they would add that stuff onto it. But here's why I think my starting point is better than yours. That's it. Are we lagging again?
No.
Okay. I just rendered you speechless.
No, I guess I wasn't as impactful as maybe you thought it would be.
Well, it's simple stuff, really.
So hearing you talk, I'm actually going to revise sort of what I was saying about my own sort of starting point. Because I actually wouldn't say that my starting point includes the world existing in the same way it does for you. I think my fundamental starting point is the reality of God, at which point, from there, the existence of everything else is based upon. And my affirmation of the existence of everything else comes from that. Okay? So because God is the creator and sustainer of all things, from my point of view, I have to start there. And then from there,
You have to start there?
I'm confessing that I start there. I have to start there if I'm being true to what I'm basically confessing. Yeah.
If you had a mind wipe and you could start again, and you
Yeah.
had two starting points to choose from, mine or yours,
I don't know.
would you choose to start at
I
the?
have no idea.
The reason why I ask that is because this whole idea of God, like, what's God like? Can you describe him?
Yeah, sure. I would appeal to what Jesus is like. I think God is most fully disclosed in the person of Jesus.
Okay,
Yeah.
but now we're getting back to the historical method, are we not?
No, we're not. Why are we?
Okay, describe Jesus.
Yeah. I would say that Jesus reveals that God is unconditionally loving, that God is irrevocably committed to God's creation, that God has chosen.
What does Jesus have to do with this?
Jesus reveals this in his life and in his death and
Do
resurrection.
you know Jesus' life?
I think there are. I think specifically in the death and resurrection, I would say, but I think there are certain things.
Do you know Jesus died and rose again?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of my core confession. Yeah, of course.
So you start that Jesus died and rose again.
That's part of the revelation of God, the death and resurrection. That's
that's your starting point?
Yes, that's part of the starting point of the reality of God. That stuff is true. I mean, it's not discoverable using a historical method. It's through revelation that we know that stuff is true and real.
Define revelation.
God disclosing the truth about what God is like.
But that revelation is through the text and traditions, is it not?
It's not. So this is an interesting point of discussion, because it's not. I would not consider. I'm going to sound very not Protestant right now. I don't think the text is the primary mode of mediation. So that we're going to be talking about mediation now, right? If we're talking about Scripture being something through which God's revelation happens, right? So we're going to be talking about mediation now. I don't think Scripture is really the primary mode that happens. I think it's through people. I think it's through relationships. I think it's a very different sort of thing. I like the Bible.
People believe all sorts of stuff. How do we know Jesus is showing that God is loving? What if God is actually a little bit surreptitious? What if he's a little sneaky? What if God's actual nature is deceptive? What if God actually hates some people, which some Christians believe, I might add? I'm not giving hypotheticals here. There are Christians alive today who believe God hates certain people.
I know that, yeah. I just think they're wrong. Yeah.
But why are they wrong?
Because of the self-authenticating revelation of Jesus Christ that's encountered me and that I've encountered, is a God of unconditional love.
But the God that has self-authenticated himself to Myron has said that God is a God of hate for some people.
Yeah, I think they're wrong.
And he thinks you're wrong. So as an outsider, I'm stuck. Who do I believe?
This is why I can't talk you into accepting my own understanding of truth. And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I can't convince you of that. That's not because the revelation is not something that you can talk your way toward, right? You can't convince somebody else that revelation is real. They have to encounter it. It has to be an encounter.
But you didn't encounter it.
I like I said, I encountered it through relationships, which is why I was talking about the importance of relationships and people for the mediation of God's revelation. So I'm not saying that revelation is necessarily you being knocked off a horse, right, and being struck blind experience, but even through a process of conversion, which is sort of what I was involved with, I still think the central dynamic of truth is revelation
through relationships.
It's because it's under the control of God and revealed through Jesus. I still think it's revelation. The process of truth is revelation. Yeah.
None of this makes sense to me.
That's okay.
And, like I when I hear you're talking about relationships, like God reveals himself through relationships.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking a Mormon, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Jew, they could say that, well, if I spend enough time with very close friends who are all Jews, the probability of me becoming a Jew goes up. If I spend all my time hanging around with Muslims who really love me and care about me, the probability goes up I'll become a Muslim. I'm hearing you say the same thing for Christianity. That doesn't get me any closer to whether it's actually true, whether any of this is justified. Like, I think we have many reasons to think that that's a horrible way for coming to knowledge, just hanging around people of similar beliefs, because it's just horrible.
So can you rephrase? I'm not quite following you.
If you're saying something is true, or you got there
I'm talking about the truth about God specifically. So this is a certain sort
through
of
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, but I'm not saying that this is how we know everything else.
No, I'm talking about the basics.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the basics.
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you know that Christianity is true, or that's your starting point because, and it's been revealed to you because it's been revealed through relationships,
and mediated by relationships,
and maybe through scripture as well. But I'm not sure, because you're like Laura, so I don't know where that's actually how much weight that has. And I'm saying that if that's how you know, or that's why it's been revealed as a good starting point, a self-authenticating starting point, I'm saying any Joe Blow could say that for any religion, and you would say they're wrong, as you did earlier.
Yeah. On those, insofar as it occludes and contradicts what I'm confessing about.
Do you care about those other people who you say are wrong?
Do. Yeah, of course I do.
So how would you get them to see that they're wrong and you're right?
That's not part of what I'm called to do. I don't think. Why am I called to convince people of the truth about?
Well, in
God?
order to evangelize.
That's not how the process of truth that I'm confessing works. It's not about me trying to talk somebody into this being true. This is about God.
Well, you can at least, but how would you even witness to them?
What do you mean?
Witness, evangelize.
Yeah, this gets into a discussion about what evangelism is. Is evangelism about trying to convert someone without giving I can't swear on this channel, can I?
You can swear as long as you whisper.
Without giving a shit about about other people. Is that what it's about? Is it about persuading people of a truth without caring about them?
Presenting the gospel. How would you present the gospel to a person?
How would I present the gospel?
Yeah.
Similar to what I was talking about with what I was talking about with what Jesus reveals about God. I would start with that God loves you. The God revealed in Jesus loves you unconditionally and irrevocably. And that's been true.
Okay. So pretend I'm a non-believer. You're witnessing to me.
Mm-hmm.
You're evangelizing. And I say to you, okay, you say God's love. So what? Why does that matter?
Yeah. So I don't even know if I would be in this conversation unless it's something that has been.
Okay, fair enough. No relationships have been established.
Unless this topic had come up within a relationship of trust and friendship and understanding, I don't think I would even come close to having any sort of quote unquote evangelistic conversation.
So who would you evangelize to?
Huh?
Who would you evangelize to?
I don't really know. It's hard for me to come up with.
Like, would you go on the street corner, for example?
No. Like I said, I think sharing about Jesus only makes sense to me within a relationship of usually a friendship that entails trust. Who
do you think would most need Christianity? Do you think I need Christianity?
Do I think you need Christianity? So I'm not arguing for the legitimacy of Christianity.
No, I'm talking about need. I'm talking very practical right now, very pragmatic.
Do I think you need Christianity?
Yeah, do you think I need it?
I don't think you need Christianity.
Okay, do you think some people do?
I don't think anyone needs it. I don't think anyone needs Christianity as a religion. I don't think anyone needs to be persuaded of that truth.
Really? I would have thought your answer would have been,
It's not up to me.
I thought your answer would have been people need Christianity because it helps them be better in their relationships.
Be better in their relationships. I think there are definitely relationships outside of the church that are probably better indicators of God's love and relationality than a lot of relationships within the church. So I'm not defending, or I'm not really concerned with defending the Christian community or communities as something that everyone needs to be a part of.
I understand that, but I would
Yeah.
think that if you are passionate about Jesus,
Yeah.
that you love Jesus because he is God in flesh, I would think that you would want to share that with other people and say, Jesus is everything, and he can help you love more, help the poor more, do all these things. Let me show you how to get there. Right?
Show you how to get there. Yeah, I mean, those sorts of,
The Holy Spirit can use John to bring someone who needs Jesus the most into his flock, or however you want to put it.
so I wouldn't set this up in terms of a need. I don't think Christianity is something that's filling a sort of space or a hole or a deficiency. I don't think that's. I don't know where that's coming from.
Sin problem. The need is sin.
But Christianity itself doesn't solve. So there's some slippage here because you're talking about Christianity, and you're equating that with God.
Yeah.
Why? That's why.
Because this is your worldview. You think Jesus is God in flesh.
Yeah, but Christianity is a religion, which we discover and talk about and can talk about sociologically, which I'm fine with. I'm not claiming that Christianity itself as a religion is part of my presuppositions.
Right.
I'm saying
I assumed that Christianity was a relationship with Jesus. That's how I'm defining it.
Okay.
You know, the true Christianity, not the religious stuff, not the legalistic stuff. I'm talking about the true Christianity.
Yeah, there are a lot of I'm getting a little confused about definitions, but
usually when it comes to definitions, I will embrace whatever definition you want. So if you just let me know how you define Christianity, how you define whatever, and I'll go with it. I'm pretty easygoing.
Okay. I mean, so getting back to the question about, so let's just talk about somebody. I'm in a relationship with somebody, and I want to share about the truth about this loving God that's been revealed in Jesus, right? So I can talk about that and witness to that and say, hey, this is what I think is true. I think this stuff is good. Let's get involved in ways of service and new relationships and all of that sort of stuff. And maybe this encounter will happen to you too. I don't know. Maybe try it out. We'll see what happens. I don't really. I can't disclose I can't reveal to somebody the truth about God. God has to do that for them. I can bring them into contexts where I
Did he do that for you? Actually, what you just said is very important.
What's up?
You said God has to do that. God has to reveal himself.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you believe he did that for you?
Yes, that's what I've been talking about all along.
Okay. Can someone say that God revealed himself to them and be mistaken?
Yeah, of course.
How did you figure out you're not one of those people?
How can I figure out if I'm not one of those people?
How did you figure out that you are not one of those people who says that God revealed himself to them, but yet we're mistaken?
Because I feel like we're going back to the self-authenticating thing constantly with this, because it's self-authenticating. There's no need to do that.
But you just said that someone can say that God revealed himself to them and yet are mistaken.
Yeah, if it contradicts the basic truths about God that I've already been talking about. Yeah.
So they're mistaken only if it contradicts what you already believe.
No, what's been revealed by God. It's not contradicting something that I've come up with in terms of my own beliefs. It's contradicting revelation.
So we have two people who say God revealed X to them. This guy says God revealed X. And this guy says God revealed not X. What do we do with that?
Yeah, I would judge it according to what's been revealed in Jesus Christ.
But these guys are saying this is what has been revealed in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know.
God revealed through Jesus Christ X. And this person says God revealed through Jesus Christ not X. What do we do with that?
Contradicting that God is irrevocably committed and loves us unconditionally, and this has been true from before the foundation of the world, and God is committed to drawing all people into God's self to be in loving communion, and that Jesus demonstrates this love, died, was raised, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. And this is a universal thing. We're all caught up in this. There's nobody's outside of this. Insofar as it contradicts that basic account, what I think of the Christian gospel.
Yeah, I think anybody...
Wrong. Yeah.
John, you're a nice guy, and my guess is that even if you left Christianity, you would still help the poor, still love your neighbor, still all do these great things. You would still be accepting of communities that most people are not accepting of. I think you've kind of even already hinted that you don't need, or at least people don't need Christianity to do those sorts of things.
No, yeah, right. I totally agree with that.
But someone listening in to this right now is thinking, what the heck is going on here? Like, if we do want to figure out if our beliefs are true or not, this is not probably a good way to go about it. A Muslim or a Jew or probably even tons of denominations of Christianity listening in right now and saying, what in the world is John talking about? We know this is true because of the minimal facts. We know this is true because of all the manuscripts. We know this is true because of the eyewitness testimony, and John's just avoiding all that stuff.
Well, I'm also not making this stuff up, and I'm in pretty good company in the history of Christian theology as well. We can start with a lot of the theology that's coming out of Germany in the 20th century, and there's one Swiss theologian who I like quite a lot, Karl Barth, who is... I'm basically stealing everything I know from him in terms of sort of speaking theologically. I'm in good company with him. He didn't just make this stuff up.
Well,
and this connects with how people have talked about God in the
this
church and with the church fathers, and I'm in pretty good company here.
I'm going to appeal to maybe a revulsion in you, because my guess is you have a revulsion against certain denominations of Christianity.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Don't get me started.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to appeal to that.
Okay.
And there are probably, I know, there are denominations that you despise who will defend Christianity the exact same way you did. And these are called presuppositional evangelical Reformed Calvinists. And as soon as you said the two words self-authenticating, my heart sank, because I go, ugh.
Yeah. You thought I was an apologist, yeah.
You sounded just like a presuppositional apologist to me. And you still do. The last half hour has been that.
How?
Because you keep going back to, well, I just know this is true because it's true.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, so they'll use a certain... I'm assuming, I really don't know apologetics very well. I've just never been involved in those conversations because I don't care about it. And I think what I've heard of apologetics, I don't like it. And I think one of the reasons is how they treat Scripture. I'm assuming that Scripture, as self-evidently the Word of God, is sort of where they start, right?
Yeah, they're different than you in that aspect, but
that's very different than saying that God is the starting point.
no,
there.
that's what they say. They will, and they get this from the same place you get it from. Those philosophical theologians, guys like Greg Bonson and Van Til,
They say it's revealed in Jesus, or do they just presuppose it as God exists?
No, they presuppose that the Christian worldview is the only worldview that can exist. Any other starting point is absurd. They'll use that language.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say.
And they won't even start with like the evidence of the Bible, the evidence of the Scriptures, like
yeah.
Just like you didn't.
Yeah, but they don't. I'm assuming because I've read a little bit of this stuff and heard various debates on YouTube and stuff, which are always entertaining. I don't think I've ever seen them appeal to revelation in Jesus Christ in the way that I was talking about it. They talk about God as sort of this God out here is self-evidently true and exists. Right? They don't start.
I can give you names of guys that you can watch if you want, but yeah, they won't just take a deist type position. No, they'll go. No, the Christian worldview is the starting point.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they actually started with the person of Jesus as revealing.
Yeah, see, and I can tell that when you say the person of Jesus, like this is the. I hear a little bit of Greg Boyd coming through you. I hear a little bit of.
Oh no! Don't.
I know.
You're hurting my feelings.
I'm appealing to your sense of revulsion because my guess is you don't want to be like these people, but yet I'm hearing this from you. And I don't know. I just don't understand why you need or needs the wrong word. I don't understand why you're a Christian. I still don't.
Some days I don't know either. Seriously, this would be a good time if you want to talk about like doubt and sort of even skepticism too.
Well,
what I don't want to say is I am so convinced of this truth that there aren't days that I feel like abandoning it altogether.
Well, why don't you just become like me?
What do you mean?
Well, I am totally open to Christianity being true. I'm telling you the truth. I am totally open to Christianity being true. But for me, I don't know if it's genetic or the way I was raised, but I need pretty strong evidence. And I've used my sister's MS as a way to get my confidence up, or 1 Kings 18, soak wood in water and then ask Jesus in Jesus' name to light it up on fire, something like that. But don't give me 2,000-year-old texts. Don't give me this early traditions of the church. Don't give me these philosophical arguments that are mostly just silliness to me. They don't get you to Christianity for sure. And so, so you could be like me and just say, I'm open to Christianity being true. I'm still, and I still think there's a lot of Christian principles that are great, like love your neighbor, help the poor. But Christianity comes with so much baggage that you just don't need to call yourself a Christian to be a good human. It's like,
oh no, yeah, I agree with you.
My guess is you and I are aligned that 90% of denominations in the United States are just like,
oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to put a percentage on something.
Yeah,
like that.
But the majority is just like they give kids guilt and they exclude a lot of people and they just it's like,
especially certain more kind of conservative evangelical churches are.
Yeah, and that's where I came from.
That's being sort of mobilized there is quite destructive,
but even the mainline types, I tell you.
No, again, I wouldn't want to just say it's those evangelicals over there who are the problem. Definitely within the mainline tradition or mainline traditions, we have our own set of problems that we've been dealing with. So yeah.
See, what I struggle with is I do admit that there's the infrastructure to help people is great in the United States with Christianity because it's there. Like you got the church buildings, you got facilities to feed people, to help people, to sing with people and comfort people. So what do you do? Like, do you just say, okay, I don't believe in Christianity anymore, but we're going to meet in the Christian church every week? And I don't know, does that take some of the oomph out of it, do you think? Like you need this shared belief in order to make things work, or can you do it without that shared belief?
No, I would love, and I've been a part of communities of faith, and also people who aren't a part of a religion, working together in the community to respond to things like poverty, to respond to things to do with economic injustice and racism and all of that sort of stuff within communities. I mean, my community here in North Carolina, we have all sorts of issues to do with like race, for example, that have been lingering. And it's really the combination of efforts from communities of faith and people who don't subscribe to them. And I think those sorts of collaborations are awesome, and I'm all for that. And they've been some of the most meaningful endeavors that I've been involved with. I mean, so yeah, I like the idea of Christians and non-Christians working together to respond to things that are really important. Yeah.
So what do you doubt the most about Christianity?
I would say, yeah. I mean, there are days when I doubt the whole thing, that it's even true. And it's hard to sort of wake up in a world where so much evil and pain and death and suffering and all of that goes on. It's hard to wake up in that world and be like, there is a good God who loves you.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. This is why I call myself an atheist and not just a non-Christian, is because would I expect the world that we live in, if there is an all good God, like if this God could even predict what would happen with his creation, he would have been better off just going golfing in some cosmic realm and just say, no, I'm not creating anything.
Yeah.
But yet here we are, right?
Yeah. So yeah, on my doubtful days, I would absolutely agree with a lot of atheists who point out that problem, basically the problem of evil. I think that's honestly the most compelling argument against Christianity, and also just sort of religions in general who hold to this idea of God being good, good and all powerful. And
yeah, but for me, it starts.
I would say that's the one thing that kind of I struggle with.
Yeah, let me tell you what I hate. What I hate is when Christians say, well, free will, blah, 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 humans, Garden of Eden. Like the Sunday school answers.
Yeah. Any sort of easy answer to that is going to be wrong. Any sort of easy answer to the problem of evil is probably going to be wrong because it's so, it's difficult.
Like in my opinion, if there is a God out there, it's incompetent or just not caring or not all powerful, not all knowing. Any God that possibly could exist in my mind is more like me or more like you, like we fallible, like and if it's not possible to have a world where there is no sin, evil, and suffering, then why create it all? Like just unless this God is weak and I need company, I need humans to worship me. It's like it's silliness in my opinion. But I am open. This is the thing.
I what you just said is a reasonable conclusion from looking at
very reasonable. So reasonable, Christians get scared listening to it.
No, I think it's a legitimate position, and I am tempted to take it.
But that being said, I do. Let me argue on the other side to keep you a Christian here.
You don't have to keep me a Christian. I think God's got me. You're fine.
This whole idea of you wake up in the morning, you go to work. Well, now we don't. You come back
Yeah.
home. You repeat that 365 days a year for 80 years, and you're dead, and that's it. I understand how that can take the oomph out of life for some people. It doesn't for me.
Yeah, I've heard you mention this a few times. It's really interesting. Yeah.
So I understand that some people, if there's not an afterlife, they need that hope to survive. I get that. But I do also think that it would be a fantastic idea if there was a deity out there somewhere that could intervene and do miracles. Like, wouldn't that be amazing if you have a loved one who's dying a painful death and there's a deity out there that can actually do something about it instantly? Like, I would love to see that. I think every human on the planet would love to see that. Now, there's some humans who claim that that's happened to them or whatever, but my standards are just higher than theirs. Like, back pain, leg growing, remission of cancer. No. I need to see a crushed bone go boop, back to normal, or an amputee limb back, something like that. That would raise my confidence.
Yeah.
I guess we're done.
Oh, I have actually some follow-up questions for you that I've kind of been jotting.
Okay.
If you don't mind, we can sort of cast our minds back to.
I want to pre-warn you. My answers are going to be short and incomplete.
That's okay.
So you're going to have to ask follow-up questions to get to the.
That's okay. I'm sure mine have been. Yeah. So you were pressing me on the revelation point, saying that any Joe Blow could say that they've had a revelatory experience and that it's true for them, right?
Yeah, it's been revealed to me that Jesus did not rise from the dead.
Yeah. Right. That's the example you used. Couldn't you say the same thing about your own presuppositions about the universe? Couldn't any Joe Blow say what you presuppose about the universe about anything else?
Are you saying that my presuppositions could be wrong?
Oh no, I'm asking you that. I'm asking you, couldn't somebody else say what you just said about the universe at a basic level in your own thinking?
Well, I wouldn't use the word. I wouldn't say revealed. I just accept it as true, and I think it's more properly basic. So that's when I was describing the different cultures.
Oh no, but like, regardless of whether or not you want to use the language of revelation, you're still admitting this as self-authenticating, right?
Yes.
Couldn't someone just say that anything else?
Yes, you just did. Your starting point's Jesus,
so
the person God.
You're doing the same thing as me. So why is the Joe Blow example only
because of revelation?
Because of the language of revelation.
Right.
I'm going to need more than that. What do you mean?
Because you're not just starting at God, you're starting at Jesus Christ as God.
Jesus Christ is God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm starting.
So you're saying this has been revealed to me. So when I hear the word revealed, that's different than a starting point. That's an action.
So you don't think I have a starting point then?
When you use the word revealed, this is why you confused me. Because I'm thinking that's no longer a starting point. That's something that happens after the starting point. You have a starting point, and then something happened called revelation.
Yeah. So the Christian conception of revelation there's not like a space where God comes down, right? Where there's an extra step. Part of revelation is actually being sort of, because we're all already sort of caught up in Christ, right? Creation comes through Jesus Christ. Jesus holds together creation in the Christian conception of things. We're all already inside of that. So Jesus doesn't have to there's not a distance that Jesus is sort of crossing there. We're already inside of him. And revelation is just a way of talking about that dynamic of truth. It's not saying there's an extra step there. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is with the language.
Okay, if you're saying that revelation is not a posterior step, okay, I understand.
Yeah, I'm open to it being one, but I'm not convinced that it is. So yeah, that my first question about the anybody saying anything about their presuppositions, that's helpful.
I'm okay with you saying that, but I just let you know that I would say 99% Christians would disagree with you. They say revelation is something that happened after God, after creation.
I would say it's part of the being of God. There are lots of Christians who I'm not making this up. This is from
Before creation, who did God reveal himself to? Himself?
What's that?
Was there revelation before creation?
So before creation is tricky, right?
It's not tricky. The answer is no.
No.
How can you reveal yourself to nothing?
No, I'm saying that the language of prior to creation is a weird thing because we're talking about something that's not time, right?
Okay, I don't want to get into this. To me, this is actually getting boring.
You're taking me there, man. Like this is. If you want,
was there a time when there was no universe?
There was no time when there was no universe. There was eternity.
Was there a time when God exists?
Was there a time?
Was there a time when God did not exist?
No.
Was there a time when God did exist?
Is there a time when God did? Yeah. Yeah.
So time is a thing, even before creation?
No, that's why this is.
Did God exist before creation?
This is going to take us in a direction that you probably don't want to go because you already told me to stop talking about this when I was talking about prior.
Just answer this question: did God exist before creation of the universe?
If we want to say before, I'm going to assume my own definition of before creation and say yes.
Okay. Before the creation of the universe, did God reveal himself?
God was in communion with God's self, so there was a sort of
So, that's one of the first things I said. I said, in order for you to say revelation is something that's already a properly basic belief, you have to say God's revealing himself to himself, and to me that just seems silly.
Well, there are different persons involved. It's God in communion, so that's why we have the doctrine of the Trinity, right?
Right.
It's their persons involved, right? Yeah. And persons are revealing themselves to other people. They're in conversation with other people.
There's only one God,
and he stands within the Trinitarian conception. So
there's only one God, and he reveals himself to every of the three persons within himself.
And they're all in communion. Yeah, right.
That you should doubt. If there's anything you should doubt, you should start doubting that stuff.
I do doubt it. I've already admitted that.
Okay. What other questions do you have for me?
Let me pull it up. Okay, so at one point you were talking about your core or your presuppositions, and you were saying that yours were superior to where I was coming from because yours can sort of be shared across cultures, right? I think you said that across probably time and space, history.
Biases,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Is patriarchy a good belief? That's been something that's been shared across space and time and history in different societies. It's been quite dominant.
Where is this coming from?
What do you mean?
Where's this question coming from?
This has been something that's structuring cultures and across space and time. Men being the ones who are in charge of...
I'm not saying patriarchy is a properly basic belief, though.
Okay. But is it just that? I guess I'm confused about where you're coming from then, because if
that the universe exists and has the properties that it has, and that we can learn things about it. The universe.
So is it anything that's shared across cultures and history? Anything that's shared across those things
it's the acceleration of gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. That's another thing that's shared amongst all cultures, all biases. At sea level, no matter where you run the experiment, it works.
So they're something like, and patriarchy is obviously like I'm not trying to trap you, and it's an extreme example, but this is something that has been shared across cultures, across space and time and history. Yep. What I'm wanting to know is, how do you judge whether or not that belief in that structuring dynamic within culture and history, how do you know if that's a good belief or not?
This is different than starting points, but I would say it depends on your standard of good, bad. So I would judge it based on well-being and unnecessary suffering. So if it minimizes suffering, maximizes well-being, then patriarchy is good. And if it does the opposite, then it's bad. And sometimes it can be good, and sometimes it can be bad.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Depends on the context. See, this is, yeah, I know.
Isn't that
You're,
relativism?
huh?
Isn't that just moral relativism?
Yeah,
So you're a relativist.
I'm both. Yeah, there's some things I think. Well, let me put it this way. I think there's some things we can get pretty close on that spans all cultures. So in that way, it transcends mankind. But I would say in most things, morality evolves. I think before Homo sapiens, you think we copulated and with permission 300,000 years ago, 500,000 years ago? No, we were like apes today. It's like morality evolves just like our biology has evolved.
Mm.
I know that's hard to stomach for a lot of people listening because they think, oh, you're saying rape used to be good? I mean, not good, but not wrong, immoral maybe. Yeah. That's how we got here.
Yeah.
But that was 500,000 years ago or so. So
yeah, I'd be curious to know if
time heals all wounds.
Yeah.
I got you to laugh about rape.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
My apologies.
No, you're fine. Wow. A follow-up question for that. So if something is good, ethically good within one culture or society because of its benefits for the good or whatever, and something else is good in a different society, right? A different culture. Those two things, let's say they'd contradict each other. How can they have a conversation with each other?
Same way we do.
About truth and about the basis of their society and about
that's when you would start appealing to.
If there are fundamentally different conceptions there, how do they have a conversation?
The same way we do is you try to appeal to some shared goals, some shared desires, having relationship, as you mentioned.
Yeah. But where they disagree, how do we know which one is right?
It depends on the issue. Sometimes we might not ever know. I would say basic trial and error works pretty good. So if your goal is X, try it. Do you get to X? If not, well, maybe that's not the right way to go. I think a lot of our morality has come through trial and error.
How do you know that? How do you?
I think that's my opinion. I don't know it, but I think well, actually, in some cases I know it. I think a lot of times we try to create laws, and then a few decades later we go, oops, that law didn't work. There's some unintended consequences of this law. Maybe we should revise it, and we keep revising it, trying to get better, trying to figure out what's the best for society. And each culture, each society will have their own ways of going about that. We're going on to politics now, and this is not a politics show.
Sorry, we can back off of that. Yeah, I didn't mean to take us there with the patriarchy question, but it was yeah. Do we have any? Are there any questions from folks?
There were, and then you started asking me some questions. So let me scroll back. Do you think the earliest Christians were justified in martyring themselves for their faith? Asked Harley Wykes. Do you know what he's talking about?
So I think the earliest Christians were justified in martyring themselves?
Killing themselves?
I'm not. Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm not sure what that question is.
Oh, Theo Noncog asks, is God within or outside time? I think you would say outside of time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a both and. God is wholly other than creation, but because of the Christian confession about God's presence in creation, I would say that God is also present within created time. So it's a both and.
Open theists would say God's not outside of time.
Right.
How do you know that there's no starting point prior to revelation, but that revelation is the first step? Ask bro what? I think you would say that you presuppose it. You don't know it because it's the starting point by definition.
Yeah, I'm confessing it. Yeah, as self-authenticating.
Oh, Paul James wants me to get into the Eucharist with you, but I already did that with
Oh,
Laura.
yeah, we can do that.
Just to let me know, did you have the same views as Laura?
I don't. Yeah.
You don't?
I don't have the same view. No.
So is it a symbol for you?
It's it's a sign of a reality between God and people. So the Eucharist.
All I need to know is, do you believe that the wine and the bread mysteriously, supernaturally turn into the body and blood of Jesus?
No, I don't.
Okay, good. You just need to convince your wife about that.
No, she's a bit more high church than I am on that sort of stuff. I think it's a symbol of divine reality.
I'm good with that answer. I love that answer. Why would God wait 200,000 years before revealing himself to mankind? That's a great question that's been asked many times. Isn't it suspicious that if you accept evolution via common descent and that, it's been many, many hundreds of thousands of years, planet Earth has been here, 4.5 billion? And then just 2,000 years ago, God reveals himself.
Yeah, I don't really know how to answer that question because I don't know. That's my best response is I don't really know. But yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the questions that I'm seeing, we've sort of already talked about, or I've asked you.
Cool.
But yeah, John, you're a nice guy. I'm sure you're doing great things for the world through your church. I just hope no Christians email you now. Say, why did you say that?
I'm probably going to get a flood of responses.
Yeah.
Hate mail. Yeah, I feel like I'm in pretty good company. The circles that I run in theologically are pretty safe for me. So,
yeah,
but I think you're right that a vast majority of Christians, especially in the United States, would disagree with a lot of what I've said today. But I do think there's a small and powerful minority.
Oh, they're.
And I would say, especially within the academic discussion in theology, that would have my back. But yeah.
A lot of my viewers who are Christian would say, you're a liberal poser. You're a flag-waving, phony Christian. You are a liberal-leaning, tree-hugging, sandal-wearing, granola-crunching, no good Christian.
I got a TMI mug, too.
Anyhow, it's been fun.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm glad that we got to make this happen after I wasn't able to be on with Laura. But, yeah, I've enjoyed watching your videos, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to be on here.
Great. Yeah, I enjoyed it too. All you have to do is hit the X and you're out here, and I'll play the outro music.
Cool. Thanks, man.
See ya. Turn that down. Okay. Hey, thank you, Joshua White, for the donation. Pretty good conversation, he says. My spirit was deflated when John kind of went the precept route, though. It's like, yeah. What do you do at that point? It's true because it's true. Tribes with less than 150 individuals don't require superordinate beliefs to maintain social cohesion. Religion is a social cohesion psychotechnology. There you have it. Sovereign Soul says, yep, preach the gospel or take down the cross. Fundamentalism's view on mainline Protestantism. Guess it beats Whore of Babylon for a view of Catholics. Three McFlurries out of 5. Is that a Randall Rouser reference? Interview Steven Anderson. No, thanks. Did he say why he thinks it seems God gives the understanding to so few people? That's a good point. How does someone get to the starting point he has if God doesn't reveal it to them? Or maybe, see, this is the thing. John might go straight to what Greg Bonson would say. They're suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. Can the Fed keep the stock market up forever? No, is the answer. They're sucking out liquidity, at least in the bond market. There'll come a day of reckoning. There'll be a worldwide reset button at some point. If you guys think that the markets stabilized after the recession of 07 and 08 because of anything Obama did, you're wrong. It's the Federal Reserve. Same with Bush during the 01, 02. And you realize that why'd you get me started on this? 38% of GDP is now basically owned by the Federal Reserve, monetizing debt. We're lost, Doug. We're going to hell. Pack a lot of dry ice in that igloo. And bring the good stuff, the old expensive stuff, and the Colombian stuff. It's going to be rough without it. That's funny. 1,000 pine points to you, Dagobah Dave. You made me laugh. Yeah, the Federal Reserve is, you want to know why there's wealth inequality? In my opinion, it's not because of who's president or what administration's in power. It's the Federal Reserve. How many people know how to buy bonds or short the market? The wealthy with good investment managers, that's who. Poof. When I first turned into the show, I thought John was a pre-supper. Yeah, you came. I know exactly when you came, Floyd. Have a great day, guys. Take care. We'll see you, I don't know when. Someday. Unless Jesus returns first.